Hey guys, since we have finished reading the Land of Stories yesterday, I think it's time to do the review of the Land of Stories. But let me start out by reading what's on the tongue. When the twins' grandmother gave them a treasured fairy tale book, they have no idea they're about to enter a land beyond all imagination. The Land of Stories where fairy tales are real. But Alex and Connor soon discover the stories they know so well haven't ended in this magical land. Goldilocks is now a wanted fugitive. Red Riding Hood has her own kingdom, and Queen Cinderella is about to become a mother. The twins know they must get back home somehow, but with the legendary evil queen hot on their trail, will they ever find the way? And with that, it also helps out with going through a summary of it. For the Queen's visit, the prologue, it shows for Queen Cinderella going back into the dungeon to meet with the evil queen, who was also her stepmother. Wonder why she tried to kill her in the first place. What was her motivation to kill her in the first place? Why is she who she is? Why is she heartless? And then later on in chapter 1, it goes to an elementary classroom talking about fairy tales. Talking about how the real fairy tales are compared to what everyone has heard from cartoons and movies and stories they have heard as a kid that aren't really in it, except for the Grimm brothers and Christian Hans. And with the help of Alex Bailey, she has a wonderful knowledge of it because she had these stories told as a little girl from her grandmother. But Connor Bailey, her twin brother, doesn't really have much of a knowledge of it because he slacks all the time. Almost makes me think of me and my older brother while we were in school. When I was in school, I always had education and I wanted to learn more. He had a hard time with it, but only because he has a learning disability, so that's different. But he didn't have the motivation to learn, just like Connor, unlike I had the motivation to learn like Alex. So we are pretty much the same on that. And when it came to chapter 2, The Longer Walk Home, it goes from Alex Connor after school of walking home, but it's a longer walk since they recently lost so much in their life, from losing their father to losing their home and everything. So much in one day. Their father, their home, their father's business. I mean, and they were only 10 years old, which makes it so much for them to lose at such a young age. And the birthday surprise, because that day at the school was actually the day before their 11th birthday. And what they didn't know is that their grandmother came to visit by surprise, especially that their mother is a nurse who works at night to help to pay the bills that everything has happened, from the funeral to rent to car payments to everything, almost what every adult has to go through in life. The Land of Stories. After Connor and Alex got the Land of Stories that you had as a childhood, Alex took it to her room and wished somehow she had a better life in the Land of Stories. And somehow the Land of Stories started to glow and hum, and she was starting to panic. And next thing she knew, her and Connor saw a bird flying out of the book, all because throughout the whole week she started to act like Connor. She struggled. She didn't want to do anything because she was focused on that book. Why it was glowing, why it was humming, why a bird appeared in the girls' bathroom. And then she was so curious she decided to put her arm in the book. And next thing you knew, she ended up inside the book, and so did Connor from chasing after her. And from the Mountain Frog, they discovered they're in the Land of Stories. But next thing you knew, they see a wanted poster of Goldilocks, wanted dead or alive for so many reasons, for thievery, murder, so much reason. And next thing you knew, they see a pack of wolves. Not just any pack of wolves, they were giant wolves, like 3 times the amount. And the leader of the pack was a mountain claw, who was the son of the late Big Bad Wolf, who was killed because of Red Riding Hood. And they saw this woman dressed in a violet suit with a cream-colored horse named Porridge, and it was actually Goldilocks preparing for battle. They fought, they won, and Goldilocks almost didn't make it because she lost her sword, but Connor helped her out of it. And next thing she knew, she was gone and saw a giant frog man that wanted to help Alex Connor, and because the frogman recognized Alex because of the name, because also throughout the week she dropped so many items in the book, not just herself, like her books, her pencils, disregarded socks, anything she didn't really care about, she can put in the Land of Stories. And that's how the frogman knew them apparently. and how, since Connor was so uncomfortable with it, he wanted to give him some kind of name or something to have a right conversation, so he decided to give him the name Froggy. And he was the one who gave Alex and Connor the Land of Stories, no, the Wishing Spell story to help them get home. And especially that they're worried since the time difference, it might have been a huge time difference since it's all been the same to them, but everything has changed in their time since it's written in the French Revolution times, I believe. And they're afraid that if they stayed longer, their mother would be almost as old as their grandmother. And so that's how they got that worried to get to the the Wishing Spell on time, to get it as fast as possible. And Froggy warned them that some lands are dangerous and full of unnecessary creatures, so they had to go fast. Especially the dwarf forest they're in is the most dangerous part with criminals and beasts and everything. And they started their journey, and first encounter they went to is the Wicked Witch. Not the Wizard of Oz Wicked Witch, but for Hansel and Gretel Wicked Witch. And she wanted to eat them, but since they came up with ways to have her eat healthier, Alex tricked them to have a wish from the witch. And since it was Connor's idea, he had to make the wish and wanted her to be a vegetarian so they don't end up eating them. And later on, they go to Rapunzel's tower to collect the hair, which is one of the first items of the wishing spell. But there was no way to get there, so Alex decided to climb up the tower just because she didn't know there was a doorway at all. But apparently in the journal they received, there was a doorway, so Connor was being a little smart about it, just being any brother would to his sister. They got there, they got the lock of hair. That's one item down for the wishing spell. Next chapter in the Hidden Palace is where the evil queen is, because she escaped from the prison. We don't know why, we don't know how. Well, we probably know why, because she wants what she wants. Probably the reason why she tried to kill Snow White, but what was the reason? But she was with the huntsman, who was like the assistant of it all. But since he was too weak and frail at all, again too old, so he had to bring his daughter along. And he also brought in two items: the magic mirror she used from Mirror Mirror on the Wall, who's the fairest of them all, and also the Mirror of Truth, to show who the person actually is inside that mirror. And since the huntswoman, the huntress, the huntsman's daughter, needed to do it since she is more flexible and everything, really, just a perfect athlete. The next chapter, in chapter 9, is called The Charming Kingdom. The Charming Kingdom is where it is for Cinderella trying to get the glass slipper, another item for the wishing spell for Alex and Connor. So they needed to find a way in. And what it also says, they had to go to a ball, and since they knew she was pregnant as well, it was so hard because it's one of the most symbolic things for them. The slipper is the reason Cinderella was the one to be married to Prince Charming. And they somehow did get the glass slipper, but they have no idea how, because they're right there with Cinderella having a conversation about her past life, how her stepsisters and stepmother treated her so wrong, how the mice have helped her out to make the dress and everything, how the fairy godmother helped them out. And next is the Red Riding Hood Kingdom for chapter 10, which is going to the Red Riding Hood Kingdom to meet Queen Red Riding Hood. But first they meet Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, making a bark basket out of a tree. He didn't look so happy. They don't know why. He was all like, whatever, like a moody person would be whenever they're not happy. And they also see the magical harp that the giant took. And next thing, the harp told the twins why he was like that, because Jack was in love, but the harp didn't know who, and Jack had a hard time seeing him. We just don't know who yet. So, and then Jack came back with a basket of the tree bark he made, and he had to go to Red Riding Hood's castle because Red wanted him to come, because Red's actually in love with him, but he's not in love with her, because he's in love with this other girl. We just don't know who yet. But we later find out, well, first, they get to the castle. see a room full of baskets because one of the barks from another basket is another wishing spell item. So that's 3 items they have so far, but they couldn't find it. And they see the huntress looking again at the basket as well. And she throws a lantern in the basket, a lit lantern, to cause the castle to be on fire so the twins wouldn't get it and probably kill the twins. And so they did get the chunk of the basket, fortunately, and made it. And they see Jack at the end of the kingdom, and they see another person who was Goldilocks. He's in love with Goldilocks. That's why he doesn't see her, because she's always on the run from the law, so she doesn't end up behind bars. And from chapter 11 is the Troll and Goblin territory. Later on, after they left the Red Riding Hood kingdom, they've been captured by a troll and goblin to take them into slavery for the rest of their lives. Since the Troll and Goblin territory is bordered up by 3 giant boulders that they cannot get out from or get in from at all. So, because they kept enslaving innocent human beings forever and ever. And somehow they managed to escape with the help of the traveling tradesman, who actually helped the man who wrote the journal they have to get to the wishing spell items in the first place. And conveniently, the crown that's for the king of troll and goblin was the 4th item of the wishing spell right there. And another important thing, there are 8 wishing spell items, so they're already halfway there on their wishing spell items. They were able to escape, but the tradesman could not because he was wanted all over the Land of Stories, so no matter what would happen to him, he would end up behind bars anyway. Chapter 12 will be the Fairy Kingdom. They end up in the Fairy Kingdom after their escape. They needed to get a fairy's tears from being so sad and distressed. They see this fairy crying, and Alex being Alex, she wanted to make this fairy be comfortable and be happy. But Connor was being impatient. He wanted what they needed. So he tried to get the fairy cry, and they know the reason, because she was about to be banished from the Fairy Kingdom because she used magic that when she wasn't supposed to. And then there is a trial for her from the Fairy Council, actually, saying that she did not do it, and Connor was there because he was trying to help the fairy to stay in the kingdom because it's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to use magic. Doesn't matter what the law says, and the council allowed the fairy to stay. And they went through a shocking thing. After that, they found a childhood story the twins actually went through when their dad told them when they were kids before he died. A walking fish. They told them about a walking fish because it's about being different. You should be proud of being different. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of yourself. That's what the lesson of the walking fish was. Because with the walking fish, he wanted legs after saving a fairy's wand, but to play with the boy. But unfortunately, the boy drowned and the fish couldn't swim, saying the fish should have stayed a fish instead of a walking fish. And for chapter 15, the Northern Kingdom is to go to Queen Snow White's castle to get the rubies in the casket, or any gems, really. That would be the 5th item and the 8th wishing spell items. And it will show that what is it? Oh, man. It'll be somewhere on top of the castle for them. But unfortunately, they couldn't find it after swimming in the cold water. Alex almost drowning in the water. The casket was actually in the dwarf forest again with the mines where the 7 dwarves had been digging to have a mural because it felt uncomfortable for Snow White to have something she practically laid in during her death. So they went back to the mines to get to the rubies. Next thing I knew, they got the rubies and any jewels, really. They got clobbered in the heads. After being chased by the wolves again. They see the wolves chasing them. We don't know why. I think I skipped a chapter. I skipped a few chapters. Chapter 13 is the wolf pack. I skipped a few chapters. The wolf pack, they meet with the evil queen. And the evil queen wanted to make a deal out of them to get to the twins so they can have Queen Red Riding Hood for Malcolm's father's to avenge his father's death. Next, they go to the Sleeping Kingdom. The twins go to the Sleeping Kingdom. They get the spindle. And after running around from the kingdom because the kingdom was sleeping, but the next thing the items fell out of the bag, knowing the glass slipper was stolen. So the guards chased them around. The twins ran out to the castle. Next thing they saw Sleeping Beauty, she called off the guards, and she knew what the twins were doing because she met the man who was looking for the wishing spell items before, and she helped the twins out. And ever since she woke up from 100 years of sleep, she never went to sleep since. And she wanted to help the kingdom wake up before she goes back to sleep. And Connor helped out with the idea with using a rubber band trick to snap a rubber band off the wrist. That's what helps Connor stay awake at school. And back to the Northern Kingdom where they got the gems and everything in the mines, and the next thing you know, they were clobbered by the Troll and Goblin to be back to enslavement, to be punished for what they did, to tell the fairies that they've been enslaving all these innocent people again. And next thing you knew, after being chased, Connor got scratched in the arm, and so the way to get out of the torture is to draw the blood he was getting, the wolves' attention, to attack the Troll and Goblin. But they ended up being in danger from the wolves again. Next thing you know, they were in the ocean, Mermaid Bay, and they fell and dropped. The wolves didn't see them. They're gone, but we don't know if they're alive or dead yet. Because in chapter 17, it goes back to Goldilocks in one of her hideouts. She sees this beautiful dress that reminded her of her childhood before she ended up being a fugitive. Next thing she knew the evil queen was there, talking about how she became a fugitive, saying it was all Goldilocks' fault. Because she wrote a letter to Goldilocks saying that it was Jack, wanted to meet her at the house where the three bears were, because all Red was to get her hurt so she could have Jack all to herself. She didn't know she was going to be fugitive because they were just kids. And all knows, Goldilocks was so infuriated. She wanted to have revenge on Red Riding Hood in the worst way possible. In chapter 18, A Mermaid's Message, it shows the twins alive under the sea, and they wanted to meet the sea foam princess known as the Little Mermaid. Because what it shows, the Little Mermaid in the Disney movies, it shows that Ariel does marry Prince Eric, but in the actual story, she does not marry the prince, and she ends up losing her life, but she ends up being a sea foam princess with her spirit still in it. And from the saber that was supposed to kill the prince, that was the wishing spell item they needed to get the last one, I believe. All they needed was to have it destroyed at the end. So that would be the lock of hair, the glass slipper, the crown, the tear, the jewel, let me look back. They just need a lot of items I can't get on top of my head. The crown, the saber, the basket, the slipper. I think they got all 8 items in chapter 19. Because, unfortunately, the sword, the sea foam princess wanted it destroyed, but the man didn't destroy it all the way since he might need it again later on. So he put in Thornbush Pit, where all the vines and thorns were, to the Sleeping Kingdom where Sleeping Beauty is, to have them destroyed. And a witch was in there in the pit where she died, and she had to cast a spell. So whoever was near would also perish from the pit. And notice that it was there. They had magic shells from the Seafoam Princess to have them be safe, but Connor accidentally lost his, and they were attacking. Next thing they knew, Froggy was back and saved them. And all of a sudden, they hear a scream from Red Riding Hood being dragged by Goldilocks because of her revenge. She wanted to kill Red Riding Hood in this. All in all, with Queen Red Riding Hood being a total girly girl, all worried about her hair, makeup, and clothes. She was worried about that and just cared about herself. She did not care about her kingdom. She cared about herself. She even has her grandmother taking care of the kingdom. And next thing, after that, the Huntress comes in and kidnaps Red Riding Hood after being saved from almost dying from the wrath of Goldilocks. And next thing, the wolves are back. They tried to attack the twins, but Froggy made it, Porridge made it, and somehow the twins and Goldilocks were all by themselves captured by the wolf pack and Malmclaw, taken to the evil queen. And from chapter 20, the twins meet the evil queen, and And they actually hear the story of why the evil queen is the evil queen, because there was a man in her life named Myra when she was Evelyn, that they loved each other very much. They wrote poems to each other. And the enchantress at the time took away the chance to see each other before they got married. And she knew where Myra was, so she trapped him in the mirror the mirror on the wall, where he ends up just talking around, losing himself, who he is. And the evil queen, wanted the wishing spell items to bring Myra back so she can be Evelyn. That was her name before she became the evil queen. And she did succeed. She did get the wishing spell items, unfortunately. That was before Connor actually kicked the fairy's tears from the evil queen, so the wishing spell wouldn't activate. But this wishing spell did activate because of Alex, because she knows Alex was crying for some reason, and the tear she produced activated the wishing spell, and that brought Myra to life. But unfortunately, it only lasted for a little bit, because it completely lost who Myra was, and he ended up dying in Evelyn's arms with the heart of stone she has. She took the stone out because she didn't want to die of a broken heart. That's why she's heartless. The heart of stone is her actual heart, so she doesn't have to feel the pain of losing the man she loved. And after that, the castle ends up being destroyed because Jack came in, and so did every single guard in the kingdom for Snow White to arrest the evil queen and arrest the huntsman and huntress. And there was a battle for the huntsman and Jack to save Goldilocks and Red. But the huntsman did die from his own arrow. The huntress witnessed it and fought Jack to the death. And then later on, Goldilocks saved Jack, and they end up fighting to the death. And unfortunately, good thing Goldilocks survived. The huntress has died. But the evil queen, disappeared. She got swallowed by the mirror that Myra was in. So her and Myra were in the mirror, gone forever. And the castle is smashed. And before that, Alex saw a piece in the mirror with wings somehow behind her. She was confused, so she just had to let it go, especially with the castle falling apart right in front of her. They made it. Goldilocks made, Red makes it, Froggy makes it. All the wolves died from the battle as well. It's like the classic good guy, bad guy. Bad guys lose, good guys win. But the downside is Goldilocks did get arrested from all the crimes she made, even after Red Riding Hood drops the charges. But unfortunately, she was wanted throughout the whole Land of Story, so no matter what, she'll be behind bars. But the next thing we knew, Red comes down to the prison Goldilocks was in. She freed him to have forgiveness. And next thing we knew, Jack is behind, right with Porridge, saying that he's coming with her no matter what because he loves her with all his heart. Even though Goldilocks was against it, her heart couldn't say no. She had to say yes. She wanted to be with Jack, the man that she loves. And later on, the twins and Red and Snow White got invitations from Cinderella that she had her new baby girl. So they went for a visit after the wishing spell was activated. They went through so much after that. The evil queen vanished and the heart of stone is with them. So Alex decided to give the heart of stone to Snow White because that was pretty much the only thing left of the evil queen, Snow White's stepmother, momentum for her, because she knew that was important to the evil queen. And after they went to the Charming Kingdom again, they see the baby, and the fairy godmother wanted to see Alex, Connor, and Froggy, because Froggy did save the children's lives multiple times, so they can turn Froggy back into a human being from a curse that has occurred when he was a young boy. And later on, the twins have discovered that the fairy godmother was actually the twins' grandmother. And that means their father was part of the Land of Stories after discovering the walking fish and another story called the Curvy Tree, saying the tree was so different, didn't grow straight, it was in multiple curves and everything. But it didn't get chopped down because it was different, because no one thought a curvy tree would make good furniture. Same as well as it's good to be different as well. It's another story to be proud of who you are. And later on, the fairy godmother turned Froggy back into a human being, which was actually one of the Charming's long lost brother, because Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty all married a charming prince, but they were all brothers. But there was a fourth brother who was actually Froggy, the long lost brother, who was actually been hiding because he was ashamed of being a human frog. And after that, the fairy godmother, their grandmother, told the twins that journal they had was their father's book, after he discovered their world was from falling in love with the twins' mother. And they were worried from the time difference, but there was no time difference at all because of the twins. The twins were the bridge between the real world and the Land of Stories world, saying their mother is going to stay the way she is. And then fairy godmother brings them home. Connor left right away, but before Alex left, she had to say thank you to all the fairy tale creatures and princesses. Say thank you for being there for her one and only true friends. And for that being the end. For what I think of the story is, I love it. I can't explain how much I love this book. Especially that I read this book 4 times now. Seriously, I read this 4 times ever since I got this. The reason why I fell in love with it, because it was Chris Colfer in Glee. So Kurt, I'm a little upset though because it is the last season of Glee here. But it's so good. It's so imaginative. It sees what we'll see at the end of Happily Ever After, because Happily Ever After doesn't really end at all. Because who knows what goes on in their lives when it ends. I love the imagination it brings in. I'm a visual thinker on certain things. And one of my favorite parts for being a visual thinker is this adorable little map Chris and the illustrator have made to see where the twins have gone, see how far into the Land of Stories they have been into. And since, for me being a visual thinker and also going to education in the future, I'm going to school to be a teacher later on, hopefully around 1st or 2nd grade. And I think this is a perfect book for these young children to read, and also to see before read the actual stories from the Grimm brothers and Christian Hans, what the real story is about. The torture Cinderella went through, that Goldilocks was eaten for a bit. I love it. And what I would love for this book to happen is to make this book into a movie. Not just rip the book in half and get rid of the majority of the stories like the Nicholas Sparks movies did. Even though I love Nicholas Sparks books and I like some of the movies, there was only one good movie compared to the books, and that was The Notebook, because the story made sense there instead of the book to me. Even though I will read that later on when I get that book. But if this does turn into a movie, I want to hear the whole thing in the movie. I love this book. I can't stop reading it. I definitely recommend it. I want you guys to read. I want you to feel like you're part of the journey. Feel the connection you have with Alex and Connor, because I feel the connection with Alex and Connor, because I love to learn like Alex. Unfortunately, I'm going through hard times with my family. Like, my dad is sick, so with multiple sclerosis. So it's almost like I'm going through hard times as well from that. You know, I still have my dad. I know it's going to be a long journey for me, for my family. That's part of the connection I have with Alex Connor. Going through the hard times, knowing you can always go somewhere to have a better life in the future. Like for me, my better life in the future is going to school. For them, it was to go to the Land of Story. School for me is my Land of Stories to have a better life. I feel the connection. And also seeing what happens at the end with Goldilocks being a fugitive. It shows each story has 2 different sides. Why she went to there and went to the house in the first place. Did the end up still falling in love even after on. I really can't explain this. Like, it shows you should love in every way. Be proud of who you are. Go through all the challenges you go through. Also set new challenges on yourself, like the twins did to get through the Land of Stories, to get to the wishing stones, to go home. But they realized the Land of Stories is part of their home, and I know later on they will see the Land of Stories. It just, I'm so speechless in this book. It takes so much out of me to read this 4 times. And I was the type of person who wouldn't read until I graduated from high school, only because I did not like forced reading. I could only do reading that I would enjoy, and I know this would be a book I enjoyed only because of Chris Colfer in Glee for the Great. And also, if there is going to be a movie in the Land of Stories and I end up being a part, I would actually like to be Red Riding Hood, because I've been in theater throughout my life. I would love to act like I'm a different person. I know Red and I are total opposites as well, so I would love to be Red if there is a movie of the Land of Stories. All else, would I recommend this book overall? That is a big fat yes, because it's imaginative, it's visual, it can help you out later on. It shows different stories, different reasons why to read it. Like, it shows part of the real world, actually, from success, from struggle, life and death, so many reasons. Onos, tomorrow is going to be a brand new journey, because we are going to do a different book from the Land of Stories, the Wishing Spell, because tomorrow is going to be the Land of Stories, the Enchantress Returns for tomorrow. Onos, I recommend reading the Land of Stories. If you have Land of Stories Wishing Spell, that means you would have to get the Land of Stories to the Enchantress Returns for tomorrow. And if you want to keep enjoying the reading like I have, make sure you subscribe to my channel to get more read-alongs and more reviews coming up later on. And also, if you have more books for me to read that I don't have yet, write down in the comments which ones you would recommend to me. Either if it's scary books, funny books, trilogy books like Hunger Games or anything, Harry Potter, I don't care. Give me anything to get me to read to you guys and let me review on those books. And another thing for me to say, if you're going into school for education, read this to your students. Give them assignments to help them understand the story. Because part of good education is to help understand the book you are reading, to help them go on in life. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more reading, more reviews, and comment on me if you have any recommendations for me. And I hope you enjoyed this review and enjoy more of the reading later on. Bye.